All right, well, Parliament is now in the final stages of approving the new European Data Protection Regulation, which aims to tackle this uneven level of protection across Europe by constituting one directly effective law. Their goal is to publish the final version of the regulation later this year, and the regulation is expected to become law next year. Now, we're talking about all the data breaches we've had here in the United States, and we've been handling things very differently here than the way they've handled things abroad. You know that the one thing that pokes up in your mind is our credit cards. So we have our magnetic stripes. Mm-hmm. The rest of the world seems to have moved on to a more secure way of doing things with the chips and other methods of protection. With us right now to talk about this is Dr. Adriana Sanford from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University. She's a full-time professor of international management, ethical leadership, and business law to more than 1,600 MBA and undergraduate students. She's also a writer for ISM's corporate program. She's got 6 years of law school, including dual LLM from Georgetown University and a law degree from University of Notre Dame. And I don't know what her reach is if there's going to be a prize fight.
Yeah,
I just want to give you all the information on her. She knows what she's talking about. Here she is this morning. Good morning, Dr. Sanford.
Good morning.
All right, so fill us in on what's going on.
Well, right now what we're seeing is companies really need to change the way they are looking at data protection. One of the changes is some companies are starting to get a data protection officer because the EU's laws are coming in. There's going to be a new law coming out next year. And the EU's regime is probably one of the strictest for data protection, data privacy in the world. And their laws are becoming even stricter. For example, one of the things that we're going to be seeing is that notice of a data breach needs to be given within 24 hours to the local authorities that a breach has occurred.
Here in the United States, sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes even like a couple of years, right?
That's correct. Under U.S. laws, we have different states have different laws, and they sometimes allow companies to do an investigation before they announce the breach. This can take a few weeks. It can take a few months. So the laws are clearly different.
What are the practical effects of the new laws with the EU for businesses?
Well, the new law is going to be a lot broader. It's going to cover all business operations in the EU market. It's not only for those companies that are based in the EU or that have a subsidiary or a branch office there or even a physical presence. It effectively means that anybody who has an internet business and they're selling goods or services to individuals in the EU is going to be subject to this regulation.
Are we working at all here in the United States to join in on this, or are we still resisting that?
Well, our laws are changing, and our government is taking a very close look at what's going on over there, and we may start to see more changes here in our country as well.
All right, tell us about those corporate cybersecurity attacks. How do these criminal hackers operate?
Well, the way they've been operating up to now is they're using third parties, sometimes our suppliers that are handling personal data and any confidential information. And unfortunately, this is one area where it can hurt us because they're looking for those suppliers that may have fallen off our radar. Usually companies will look and they for their compliance program, they look at their top 25 suppliers and make sure that they're in compliance. And what these hackers are doing is they're looking at those smaller suppliers that may have fallen off our radar, and basically they're getting in by using their security information.
Dr. Sanford, how are the banks handling these massive data breaches?
It's been very, very difficult for the banks because what's happening is they're having to cancel and reissue the payment cards because consumers are concerned that their information may be compromised. They're also having to absorb the fraudulent charges, and they're losing profit. So it's very, very difficult for the banks, especially if notification doesn't come until much later, or if a company's privacy default settings are low and the breach goes on for several months. These can be very hard on banks.
Something that just occurred to me is when we do business, sometimes you find yourself buying something overseas online where you have to pay pounds instead of dollars, and you're able to do stuff like that on eBay and other sites, doing e-commerce. One of the things that I wonder about with the EU's regulations tightening up and the United States is sort of lagging behind, I wonder how that is going to affect e-commerce. Do you think that the people in Europe are going to be less likely to want to do business with American sites and with American companies in general? We're talking not just about online purchases for the consumer, but also down the supply chain. Do you think that there is going to be resistance for the European companies and consumers to do business with us if we don't tighten up our restrictions as well?
Well, this is the way it works. the EU has their regulation that's going to be coming out has an extraterritorial effect. So anytime anybody from the EU is doing business with somebody from the United States, if you are a large corporation with over 250 employees, you must comply with these regulations or you will be hit with significant penalties. So actually, the goal of this new regulation is designed to level the playing field among all European member countries, but also protect these EU consumers anywhere they're buying goods or services. So if you are selling to EU consumers, they're protected.
All right, so what are some of the steps that companies can take to better protect themselves and prepare for this upcoming EU legislation?
The first thing I would say that they would need to do is take a look at their subcontractors, because those subcontractors need to comply. You need to make sure that they have a system in place, a secure system. And I would suggest that they get a data protection officer in there as quickly as possible, because this is going to be a requirement if you have over 250 employees. So this is going to be a requirement for next year. Another important step is to go back and start with a supply ethics management program where you're looking at the history of your suppliers and you're looking to see if anybody has had any issues in the past.
Gotcha. Listen, that's all the time we have for this right now. Thanks so much for being with us, Dr. Adriana Sanford. We're going to take a break. We come back. We're going to have your sectors for you. Also, we haven't given away any tickets.
I was wondering about that.
760-440-8255. If you want to go to the Kraft Nabisco Championship, give us a call, 760-440-8255.
I'm Chris Maurer, CNBC Business Radio. Stocks are higher on some